Commander Sarah Chen stood at the helm of the EDF Resilient, watching the unfamiliar star system emerge from the quantum fold. The ship's enhanced gravity compensators hummed beneath her feet, a constant reminder of humanity's hard-won mastery over the harsh conditions that had forged their species. Multiple signatures detected in the Theta sector, Commander, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported from his sensor station. His dark eyes narrowed as he studied the readings. Energy patterns unlike anything in our database. Sarah leaned forward, her muscles naturally adjusting to the ship's artificial gravity shifts. 15 years of deep space exploration had taught her that, unlike anything in our database, usually meant either first contact or trouble. Often both. "Show me," she ordered, and the main view screen flickered to life. The sight before her confirmed her suspicions. A dozen crystalline vessels, their structures resembling delicate snowflakes, were under attack by 3 massive obsidian ships. The black vessels moved with predatory grace, their weapon systems cutting through the crystalline ship's defenses with practiced efficiency. "Life signs," Sarah demanded, already knowing they couldn't stand by and watch a massacre. "The crystalline vessels are maintaining an internal atmosphere at 0.2 Earth standard," Rodriguez replied. "Occupants appear to be methane breathers." "The attacking ships." He paused, double-checking his readings. "They're running at 1.5 Earth gravity, with a nitrogen-oxygen mix. Similar to us." Sarah's jaw tightened. The Resilient had been dispatched to this sector to investigate unusual energy readings, not to intervene in an alien conflict. But the disparity in power between the attackers and defenders was obvious. The crystalline ships were civilian vessels, their design emphasizing beauty over combat effectiveness. They were being hunted. "Battle stations," she ordered, her voice carrying across the bridge. "Engineering, prepare environmental systems for potential rescue operations. Medical, set up emergency protocols for low-pressure methane-breathing species." Her crew responded with practiced efficiency, the product of countless drills and humanity's inherent adaptability. The Resilient shields hummed to life as weapon systems charged. "Open a channel to the attacking vessels," Sarah commanded. "All frequencies." The communications officer, Lieutenant Park, worked his console. "Channel open." "This is Commander Sarah Chen of the Earth Defense Force vessel Resilient. Cease your attack on these civilian ships immediately." Her voice was firm, carrying the weight of authority earned through years of command. The response came in a harsh, guttural language that the ship's AI quickly translated. "This is Warmaster Kraz of the Kareth Dominion. These beings are our prey. Depart or be destroyed." Sarah watched as another crystalline ship shattered under the Kareth's weapons. "Launch rescue shuttles," she ordered. "Target the Kareth weapon systems. Disable only." The Resilient moved with surprising agility for its size, its human crew functioning perfectly under the high-gravity conditions that would have incapacitated most spacefaring species. The ship's advanced shields absorbed the first volley from the Kareth vessels, giving their attackers their first hint that they'd severely underestimated their new opponent. "Their weapons are powerful," Lieutenant Commander Hayes reported from Tactical, "but their targeting systems are sluggish in these conditions. They're not used to fighting in high gravity." Sarah allowed herself a grim smile. Humanity's curse of evolving on a high-gravity death world was about to become their greatest advantage. The Resilient's response was devastating in its precision. Concentrated beam weapons sliced through the Kareth ship's weapon arrays, while electromagnetic pulses disrupted their engines. The human vessel moved through complex, evasive patterns that its attackers couldn't match, their crews struggling against gravitational forces that the humans barely noticed. "Commander," Rodriguez called out, "I'm picking up distress signals from the crystalline ships. Their atmospheric containment is failing." Sarah knew they had minutes at most. "Hayes, keep the Kareth busy. Hark, explain to the civilian ships that we're sending help. Rodriguez, guide our shuttles to the most critically damaged vessels first." The rescue operation that followed demonstrated why humanity had survived and thrived on their harsh homeworld. Human crews in environmental suits moved efficiently through the damaged ships, their bodies adapting to the rapid changes in pressure and gravity as they helped the crystalline ship's crew to safety. The aliens they rescued were extraordinary, floating, tentacled beings with translucent bodies that pulsed with inner light. They moved with obvious difficulty in the emergency shuttles, even with the environmental systems adapted to their needs. Fascinating, Dr. Elena Martinez commented over the comm as she helped stabilize the survivors in the medical bay. Their biology is adapted to extremely low pressure and gravity. Even our lowest settings are stressing their systems. The battle ended decisively when the Kurith vessels, their weapons disabled and their crews struggling with the high-gravity combat environment, retreated into quantum space. Sarah ordered the Resilient to maintain position, protecting the remaining civilian ships while their crews were evacuated. Hours later, Sarah stood in the specially modified conference room, facing the leader of the rescued aliens. The being's translator rendered its melodic language into English. "I am First Speaker Luminara of the Lumini Collective. We owe you our existence. We couldn't stand by and watch civilians being attacked." Sarah replied simply. "Though I admit, we're surprised to encounter two new species in such circumstances." Luminara's body rippled with what Sarah would later learn was their equivalent of bitter laughter. "The Kurith are known to many species, Commander. They prey upon those they consider weak, species that evolved in gentle environments. But you, the alien's glow intensified. You moved through conditions that would crush my people. You fought in gravity that would paralyze most spacefaring races. Earth isn't what most would consider gentle," Sarah acknowledged. "We evolved under constant pressure, in changing conditions that forced us to adapt or die. It made us strong, but it also taught us the importance of protecting those who need help." Perhaps, Luminara's translated voice held a note of hope. This meeting was not chance. The collective has long sought allies who could help us defend against the Kurith, but most species capable of fighting them are unkind. You are different. Strong enough to fight, yet choosing to protect. Sarah thought of Earth's long history, of how humanity had learned the hard way that strength meant nothing without compassion. "We'll need to contact Earth Command," she said carefully, "but I believe we may be able to help each other. The galaxy's a dangerous place. Maybe it's time someone stood up for those who can't stand up for themselves." As she spoke, Sarah didn't know she was starting a chain of events that would reshape the galaxy. She only knew that humanity had found its purpose among the stars, not as conquerors or victims, but as guardians of those who needed protection. The Resilience Quantum Communications Array was already transmitting their first contact report to Earth Command, and with it, humanity's first step toward becoming the shield that protected the galaxy's peaceful species from those who would prey upon them. The age of the Deathworlders had begun, not with conquest, but with an act of compassion that would echo across the stars. The grand chamber of the galactic conclave hummed with nervous energy as representatives from 30 different species gathered in their environmentally controlled pods. Commander Sarah Chen stood beside Admiral Zhang in the human delegation section, noting how the other species' representatives kept glancing at them with a mixture of fear and fascination. "They're afraid of us," Sarah whispered to the Admiral, watching a jellyfish-like Medusan diplomat drift away from their section. "They're afraid of what we represent," Zhang replied quietly. "Look at them, each species perfectly adapted to their gentle homeworlds. Then here we are, walking around in standard gravity like it's nothing." The chamber's central platform illuminated, and First Speaker Luminara's translucent form rose to address the assembly. The Lumini leader's bioluminescence pulsed with determination as their translated voice filled the chamber. "Honored representatives, we gather in unprecedented times. The Kurith attacks grow bolder, their raids more devastating. 3 days ago, they would have destroyed my diplomatic convoy had it not been for the intervention of humanity." Holoprojections materialized, showing footage from the Resilience encounter with the Kurith. Sarah watched the other representatives' reactions as they witnessed humans operating efficiently in conditions that would have incapacitated most of their species. A representative from the Aetherian Concordat, a gaseous being contained within a floating sphere, spoke next. While we appreciate humanity's assistance, we cannot ignore their nature. They come from what our scientists classify as a Class 13 death world. Their very existence defies our understanding of survivable conditions. She gestured to the tactical displays. Humanity proposes an immediate joint training program. We'll teach your defense forces to operate in harsh conditions. We'll help you modify your ships to withstand combat stresses. Most importantly, we'll show you that being evolved for peace doesn't mean you have to be victims. The Medusan representative who had earlier drifted away now approached. How can you possibly train species so different from your own? Sarah smiled. Because adaptation is what humans do best. We've already modified our ship's training facilities to simulate multiple environmental conditions. We can teach you to fight smart, not just hard. Over the next several hours, the alliance took shape. The Lumini would provide their quantum communication technology, the Visari their energy manipulation expertise, the Medusans their biological sciences, all supported by humanity's unique physical capabilities and combat experience. As the session concluded, first speaker Luminara approached the human delegation. There are those who think we are replacing one predator with another, they said softly. But they did not see what I saw. The Kareth would have watched us die. Your people risked themselves to save us. Admiral Zhang nodded solemnly. That's the difference between being strong and being cruel. We'll prove it to them, one rescued world at a time. The training began immediately. Sarah watched from the Resilience observation deck as the first group of alien defense forces arrived. Their environmental suits had been modified with human-designed gravity compensation, allowing them to train at higher pressures and gravity than they'd ever experienced. Remember, she told her crew, we're not trying to turn them into humans. We're teaching them to use their own unique abilities in ways they never imagined. The results were extraordinary. The Visari learned to use their crystalline forms to deflect energy weapons. The Medusans discovered their natural buoyancy made them excellent zero-gravity combat specialists. Even the gaseous Aetherians found ways to use their fluid nature to their advantage in battle. But the most significant breakthrough came from an unexpected source. During a joint training exercise, a young Lumini scientist noticed something remarkable about human cellular structure. Your bodies don't just endure harsh conditions, they explained excitedly to Sarah. They adapt to them at a molecular level. If we could understand this process, we might be able to help other species temporarily withstand more extreme environments. The research that followed opened new possibilities for the Alliance. As Sarah watched the combined fleet take shape, she realized they weren't just building a military force. They were forging a new understanding between species that had never thought they could work together. The Kareth's next raid found not easy prey, but a prepared and unified response. When the battle was over, and the raiders fled in confusion, Sarah received messages from across the Alliance. Species that had once feared humanity now saw them as guardians, teachers, and friends. The age of peaceful species being easy targets was ending. In its place, a new era was beginning, one where the strength of Deathworlders would serve as a shield for all who sought peace among the stars. The holographic display in the Resilience Command Center showed a galaxy in chaos. Red warning markers flashed across multiple sectors as Commander Sarah Chen and her assembled staff watched the Kareth offensive unfold. They're hitting everywhere at once, Lieutenant Rodriguez reported, his fingers dancing across the tactical interface. 7 Lumini colonies, 3 Visari outposts, and the main Medusan research station. They'd never attempted anything on this scale before. Sarah studied the attack patterns, her trained eye catching what others might miss. It's not random. Look at the targeting. They're avoiding anywhere. We've established joint defense protocols. They're striking at the gaps in our coverage. Admiral Zhang's hologram flickered as he joined the briefing from Earth Command. The Kareth have been watching us, learning our deployment patterns. This isn't just an attack, it's a message. They're trying to prove our protection is inadequate. Then let's prove them wrong, Sarah replied, her voice hard with determination. She turned to her staff. What assets do we have in range? The response was immediate and encouraging. The months of training had paid off. Allied ships were already moving to intercept, their crews applying the lessons learned from human instructors. But it was the next transmission that caught everyone's attention. Commander, Lieutenant Park called from communications. We're picking up something unusual. It's coming from inside one of the Kareth attack groups. The transmission was fragmented, masked to avoid detection, but its content was clear enough. Not all the Kareth supported this massive assault. A growing faction within their ranks questioned the wisdom of antagonizing the human-led alliance. Send me in, Sarah decided, looking at Admiral Zhang's hologram. The Resilient can reach the Medusan station first. If we can turn back their flagship group, it might give these dissenting Kareth the leverage they need. The battle that followed would be studied in military academies for generations to come. The Resilient dropped out of quantum space directly into the heart of the Kareth formation, its human crew functioning perfectly in combat conditions that would have incapacitated other species. But it wasn't just human resilience that turned the tide. Visari Defense Squadron. Concentrate your crystalline matrices, Sarah commanded through the Joint Tactical Network. Refract their energy weapons back at them. Medusan units, use your Zerog superiority to outflank their heavy cruisers. The allied species moved with coordination that would have seemed impossible months ago, each applying their unique abilities in ways the Kareth never expected. The raiders found themselves facing not just human strength, but the combined ingenuity of species they had dismissed as weak. In the midst of the battle, Sarah noticed something crucial. Their flagship's shield harmonics, she muttered, watching the energy patterns. Rodriguez analyzed their shield fluctuations during high-gravity maneuvers. The data confirmed her suspicion. The Kareth's advanced technology had a critical weakness. Their shield systems couldn't maintain stability under the same extreme conditions their hulls were designed to withstand. It was a flaw born of arrogance, assuming no enemy could force them to operate at such intense gravitational levels. All ships, Sarah broadcast, push them hard. Force them to make high turns. Their shields can't take it. The tide turned dramatically. Across all sectors, Allied forces began exploiting this weakness. The Kareth, for the first time, found themselves physically overwhelmed not by humans alone, but by species they had long considered prey. In the aftermath, as rescue operations began, Sarah received another coded transmission from within Kareth space. This one came from a commander named Vexkar, leader of the moderate faction. Your victory today was impressive. The translated message read, but you should know the truth. The Hardliners plan to use the quantum crystals they've harvested to build a weapon, one that could tear apart the fabric of space itself. They believe if they can't rule through strength, they'll rule through fear. Sarah shared this intelligence with Admiral Zhang and the Alliance leadership. The revelation brought both clarity and concern. The Kareth weren't just raiders. They were preparing for a war of extinction. But the Alliance had changed. Sarah watched as representatives from species that had once feared their own shadows now stood tall in the conference chamber, their confidence born not just of human protection, but of their own discovered strength. We've learned that true power isn't about natural advantages, a Visari elder declared, their crystalline form shimmering with determination. It's about how we use what we have and who we choose to be. The Medusan chief scientist added their own insight. The Kareth thought they could break us by attacking in force. Instead, they've only proven that we're stronger together than any of us are alone. Sarah stood at her viewport, watching Allied ships move in formation around the Resilient. The Kareth's massive offensive had intended to break the Alliance. Instead, it had forged it into something stronger, a true coalition where each species' unique traits complemented the others. They still don't understand, she told her bridge crew as they prepared for their next mission. They think being born on a harsh world made us strong. But Earth's greatest lesson wasn't about surviving difficult conditions. It was about helping others survive them too. As reports came in of Kirith forces retreating across multiple sectors, Sarah knew they had reached a turning point. The enemy had revealed both their true plans and their crucial weakness. Now it was time to take the fight to them. The quantum crystal weapon had to be found and stopped. But more importantly, the galaxy needed to see that strength wasn't about domination. It was about standing together against those who would prey on the weak. The real war was just beginning, and humanity would make sure their allies were ready for it. The massive holographic display aboard the EDF Resilient showed thousands of points of light representing Allied ships spread across the galaxy. Commander Sarah Chen stood before the assembled fleet commanders, both physical and holographic, as she outlined humanity's most ambitious military operation to date. Operation Guardian Shield isn't just about protecting individual worlds, she explained, gesturing to the complex network of defensive lines and quick response corridors. It's about changing how the galaxy thinks about defense. The plan had taken shape over weeks of intensive planning. Humanity's military strategists had worked alongside the finest minds from every allied species, combining their unique perspectives into something entirely new. The Visari crystalline matrices will form our early warning network, Sarah continued, highlighting the sparkling points that mark their positions. Modified to operate at higher energy states thanks to human engineering, they'll detect quantum wake signatures days before the Kirith can strike. A Medusan commander, their tentacles swaying gently in their low-gravity chamber, spoke up. Our deep space reconnaissance units are ready. In zeroed conditions, our natural sensitivity to gravitational fluctuations will let us track their movements even when they try to run silent. The deployment was unprecedented in scale. Every allied species had found its role, each contributing unique abilities that humans had helped them adapt for combat. But the true genius of Operation Guardian Shield lay in its flexibility. The Kirith expect us to fortify key worlds, Sarah explained. Instead, we're creating a fluid defense network. Every ship in this fleet has been modified to operate in multiple environmental conditions. When they strike one sector, they'll find themselves facing not just local forces, but a coordinated response from species they never imagined could fight together. The operation began with a series of calculated provocations. Allied forces made themselves visible at seemingly vulnerable outposts, daring the Kirith to attack. When they took the bait, they found themselves caught in carefully planned traps. Aboard the Resilient, Sarah watched the first major engagement unfold. A Kirith battle group emerged from quantum space near a Lumini colony, expecting easy prey. Instead, they found themselves caught between waves of defenders. Medusan units, execute Pattern Delta, Sarah commanded. Visari squadrons, commence crystalline refraction assault. The battle that followed demonstrated everything the Alliance had learned. Medusan ships, their crews perfectly adapted to zero combat, executed maneuvers that seemed to defy physics. Visari vessels turned the Kirith's own energy weapons against them, while Lumini ships used their advanced quantum communications to coordinate the entire defense with split-second timing. And through it all, human ships led the charge into the heaviest combat zones, their crews shrugging off conditions that would have incapacitated most species. The Kirith found themselves facing an enemy that could match their physical capabilities while wielding technologies and tactics they'd never encountered. Multiple quantum signatures, Rodriguez called out. They're trying to bring in reinforcements. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Spring the trap. Hidden throughout the battlefield, specially modified Aetherian vessels released clouds of their own gaseous substance, seeded with quantum-disrupting particles developed by human scientists. The Kirith reinforcements emerged from quantum space directly into these clouds, their ship's systems stuttering and failing. But it wasn't just about winning battles. After each engagement, human ships led rescue operations, demonstrating again and again that their strength served a greater purpose. The message spread across the galaxy. Humanity's deathworld nature made them not just powerful warriors, but uniquely capable protectors. The operation's true test came when the Resilient's long-range sensors detected a massive Kurith fleet approaching the Visari homeworld. This wasn't a raiding party, it was an invasion force. They're desperate. Admiral Zhang's hologram noted during the emergency briefing. They know we're cutting off their access to the quantum crystals. This is their attempt to seize a major source directly. Sarah studied the tactical display, noting how the Kurith fleet's formation suggested internal division. Vexkar's intelligence was right. The hardliners are losing support, so they're gambling everything on one massive strike. The battle for the Visari homeworld would become legendary. The Kurith expected to find a single defended system. Instead, they faced the full might of Operation Guardian Shield. Allied ships poured in from every sector, each species performing the role they had trained for. Humanity's contribution wasn't just military might. Throughout the battle, human engineers worked alongside Visari technicians in high-pressure environments, repairing crucial defense systems. Human medical teams treated wounded from a dozen species, their experience with extreme conditions proving invaluable in crisis care. The turning point came when Sarah noticed a pattern in the Kurith fleet's movements. They're protecting something, she realized, focusing sensors on a heavily guarded section of their formation. That has to be their prototype quantum weapon. What followed was a masterpiece of cooperative warfare. Medusan scouts provided precise targeting data, while Visari ships created crystalline lenses that focused Allied fire through multiple points in space. Human vessels drove straight into the heart of the enemy fleet, their crews functioning perfectly under stresses that sent Kurith ships spinning out of control. The prototype weapon was destroyed before it could be activated, and with it, the Kurith hardliners' last hope of victory. As their fleet retreated in disarray, Sarah received a priority transmission. It was from Vexkar. "Your Operation Guardian Shield has shown us something we never expected," the Kurith moderate leader transmitted. "You've proven that true strength isn't about dominating the weak. It's about combining different kinds of strength to protect everyone." As the Allies began recovery operations around the Visari homeworld, Sarah reflected on how far they'd come. Species that once could barely function outside their own environments now worked seamlessly together in any conditions. The galaxy was transforming, not through conquest or domination, but through cooperation and mutual protection. The Kurith thought that being born on a harsh world made them natural rulers. She told her crew as they coordinated rescue efforts. "We showed them that the real lesson of harsh worlds is learning to help others survive." Operation Guardian Shield would continue, evolving from a military strategy into a new way of life for the galaxy's species. The age of isolation was ending, replaced by an era where strength meant standing together against any threat. And at its heart were the humans, the Deathworlders who had chosen to use their power not to conquer, but to protect. The Kurith throne world loomed before them, a massive planet wrapped in storms and gravity fields that would crush most species. Commander Sarah Chen stood on the bridge of the Resilient, leading a fleet that represented every allied species in the galaxy. The final confrontation had come not through force, but through invitation. Vexkar's coup succeeded, Admiral Zhang's hologram reported. The hardliners have been confined to the Imperial Citadel, but they still control the planetary defense grid. They're threatening to detonate their remaining quantum crystals if we don't withdraw from Kurith space entirely. Sarah studied the tactical display, noting how the planet's natural defenses made it a perfect fortress for a species that prided itself on surviving in harsh conditions. "They still don't understand," she said softly. "They think this is about proving who's strongest." The combined fleet held position as Sarah opened a channel to the surface. The response came from Supreme Warmaster Cathor, leader of the Hardliner faction. His translated voice carried centuries of ingrained superiority. "You may have turned some of our weak-minded brothers against us, human, but this is our throne world. Its conditions will kill your alien allies in seconds if they dare to land. Even your Deathworlder biology will be tested here." Sarah's response was calm. "Supreme Warmaster, we're not here to test anyone's biology. We're here to show you a better way. Look at our fleet. Every ship out there represents a species you once considered prey. Now they're here, operating in conditions you thought they couldn't survive, not because they had to evolve for it, but because they chose to adapt. As she spoke, the Allied fleet began a carefully choreographed demonstration. Visceri ships created crystalline shields that refracted the worst of the planet's radiation. Medusan vessels navigated the gravity wells with fluid grace, while Lumini quantum technologies maintained perfect communication through the electromagnetic storms. Impossible, Cathor growled. These are weak species. They cannot. They can, Sarah interrupted, because humanity taught them something you never understood. Strength isn't about what conditions you were born to survive. It's about helping others survive with you. A new voice joined the transmission. Vexkar, speaking from the surface. Supreme Warmaster, the humans have shown us a truth we've ignored for too long. Our raids, our dominance. They've left us isolated. While we prided ourselves on our strength, they built something stronger through cooperation. The next hours were tense as negotiations proceeded. The hardliners remained barricaded in their citadel, their fingers hovering over controls that could trigger a quantum crystal detonation. But Sarah had one final card to play. Lieutenant Rodriguez, she ordered, show them the feed from Nuterra. The transmission cut to images of a human colony world, where something remarkable was taking place. Kareth refugees, those who had followed Vexkar's call for change, worked alongside humans and other species. Their natural resilience was being put to use not in warfare, but in helping establish colonies on worlds once thought uninhabitable. Your people don't have to be raiders anymore, Sarah told Cathor. You can be builders, protectors. The galaxy needs your strength, not to dominate, but to help others thrive. The images struck home. One by one, the hardliner commanders began standing down. When Cathor finally emerged from the citadel, he looked aged, as if the weight of centuries of warfare had finally caught up with him. We thought our harsh world made us special, he said as he surrendered. But you came from an equally harsh world and chose a different path. Perhaps it is time we learned to walk that path as well. The resolution wasn't marked by victory celebrations or parades. Instead, it was commemorated by a series of joint projects. The Kareth's extensive knowledge of surviving extreme conditions was combined with human adaptability and the specialized abilities of other species. Together, they began transforming hostile worlds into habitable ones. Sarah watched from the Resilience observation deck as the first joint Kareth-human Visceri engineering team successfully established an environmental dome on a storm-racked moon. The project would have been impossible for any single species, but together, they'd made it look easy. It's strange, Rodriguez commented, standing beside her. A year ago, we thought first contact would be about finding common ground. Instead, it was our differences that made us stronger. The Galactic Conclave underwent its own transformation. The environmental pods that had once kept species separate were modified to allow interaction. Representatives who had once feared humanity's Deathworld nature now sought their guidance in pushing their own boundaries. First Speaker Luminara, addressing the Conclave's first fully integrated session, summed up the change. We once divided the galaxy into strong and weak species, harsh worlds and gentle ones. Now we understand that true strength lies not in what we can survive alone, but in how we help others survive with us. The Kareth, under Vexkar's leadership, became instrumental in the new Galactic Defense Force. Their experience with harsh environments, combined with their newfound commitment to protection rather than predation, made them valuable allies in facing the galaxy's challenges. Sarah's final act as commander of the Resilient was to oversee the establishment of the Galactic Academy of Environmental Adaptation. Located on Earth, it welcomed students from every species, teaching them not just to survive in different conditions, but to help others do the same. Remember, she told the first class of cadets, representing dozens of species including several young Kareth, the story of humanity isn't just about surviving on a death world. It's about taking that strength and using it to lift others up. That's the true measure of any species, not the harshness they can endure, but the gentleness they can show while doing it. As she looked out over the assembled cadets, Sarah saw the future of the galaxy, not divided by biological limitations or evolutionary history, but united by a common purpose. The Deathworlders had changed the galaxy not through superior strength or advanced technology, but through a simple truth learned on their harsh homeworld. The strongest survive not by dominating others, but by helping them thrive. The age of competition was over. The age of cooperation had begun, and it started with a species from a death world who chose to be not just strong but kind.